Thank you for joining in. Chip is going to be talking about how to lead your team through recovery process. So today we are not talking about marketing recovery through marketing or operation. We are talking about how organization is going to recover through this downturn. With that, I'm going to just give a brief introduction of Milestone. I'm sure everybody knows, but Milestone is software and a service company based in Silicon Valley. With that, I'm going to go right into Chip's background. I'm sure everybody knows him. We all enjoy his TED Talks. I personally, every morning starts with Wisdom Wheel, which he's always contributing. So he has been my personal mentor for last 26 years. I met Chip when he was in Joie de Vivre, and just that connection carried on. Joie de Vivre, it's been 34 years, right, Chip, when you started Joie de Vivre?
That's correct. It started at age 26 and I turned 60 this year. So, yeah.
Wow, awesome. And what a journey, right? He took Joie de Vivre from nowhere to one of the finest boutique management company. He sold Joie de Vivre, then he joined AirBNB as global strategy advisor. And after all the miracle Chip did with AirBNB, he finally found his home in Baja, which was very surprising because he's such a city guy. But anyway, and in Baja, he started more to amazing insights you have for all of us. So with that, we are just going to get started. Here is the agenda for today. We are going to briefly talk about CRG framework, but we are going to talk about organization recovery funnel. How do you create authentic connection? What skills are must have to adapt to change? What a leadership must have today to survive this down economy? And how does organization recovery funnel looks like? So here is a CRG framework which we came up with when everything, sometime in March, when all the businesses, all of us were going through really hard time. I think pretty much crisis is over and we are in recovery phase. And like we discussed, we've been talking about recovery in marketing, but today we are talking about recovery within your organization, recovery as a leader, as an individual, and everything we need to do to pull things together. So with that, I'm sure if you have joined our CRG framework, you must be seeing the recovery funnel. And we have changed this funnel slightly, and that's what we will be talking about, that how do we build that culture which can adapt quickly, and what are the skills we need to gain, what problems by solving the problem, and how do we align with all our employees, all our customers, and how do we build that confidence? So with that, my very first question, and the format of this webinar is a little bit more informal, question and answer. I'm going to try to stay quiet, which is very hard for me, but I will try. Format is, I'm going to ask a few questions and Chip is going to share his wisdom. So there's really no right and wrong answer. I know a lot of you guys are asking questions, so we are going to have enough time for Q&A, but let's ask Chip that, Chip, how do you create unique experience when I can't even hug you? When you can't even, how do you build authentic connection in the Zooming social distancing world?
It's a great question, Benu, because, for a long time, I've had a fascination with what's called the IRL world in real life, and then the URL world, which is the internet. And so the online versus the offline world. And what I will start by saying is I've had to learn this personally. So I'll just tell you a little bit of my story. So 2.5 years ago, we opened the MEA, the Modern Elder Academy here in Baja. We've had 750 people go through the program from 24 countries. And it's been very positive. It's the first midlife wisdom school in the world. It's a place for people in midlife, and we define midlife as 35 to 75, come to actually imagine how to repurpose themselves, how to make it through the transitions of midlife, and how to actually shift their mindset on aging. Long story short, it's a very immersive program. As Benu knows, it's typically a 7-day program. People get to know each other really well. Our net promoter score, NPS score, which is a customer satisfaction metric that many of you may know, is a 95, which is off the charts. And yet on March 15th, we had to close. So the first reaction I had when my two co-founders said to me, you know what? We need to go and create a digital program. We need to do this online. I was like, no, because the experience we create here is so much a immersive in-person experience that to try to actually debase it and take it online felt like it would be, we would fail. But what I was doing, the mistake I was making in my head was that I thought they were saying to me, we've got to figure out how to create exactly what we do here in Baja in an online format. And the reality is the in real life experience in person has a collection of benefits to it that the online experience doesn't have. And similarly, online experiences have some benefits as well. And so, frankly, let me tell you a few of the online benefits of actually taking something from offline and going and turning it online. Number one is people can more easily commit to, or actually not commit to it, people can more easily snack on it and try it. But trying to do an all-day Zoom meeting like you might do in an all-day workshop won't work all that well because people get tired, they get fatigued with Zoom. And Zoom is this not as participatory as being in person. Now, there's lots of ways to take your format online and make it more participatory. There's everything from making everybody the host, which you don't want to do in a function like this, because there needs to be a certain amount of organization to it if it's a webinar. But if you actually have a collection of people who already know each other and everybody is made the host, all of a sudden, everybody has the ability to sort of operate as if they're running their own cocktail party with their friends. So that's one thing I've learned. What we decided to do with MEA was instead of trying to take our canceled workshops of the spring and early summer and take them online, we just said, listen, we're going to postpone those and people can come back when we open in October. But instead what we did is we took people, 750 people as the alums, and we started doing weekly mastery hours. So we doubled down on our existing community. What does that mean? Well, what we believed was trying to actually introduce new people to MEA, which is a very intimate, transformative experience, and trying to have them get to know each other the first time online is maybe setting ourselves up for failure. But if we have 750 alums who love MEA and they want to, in a difficult time, they want their little dose of MEA. Now, as Benu said, I have a blog called Wisdom Well. It's on the Modern Elder Academy website, and everybody who's an MEA alum gets a morning, micro dose of wisdom from me. But more importantly, people wanted to connect with each other. So what we did is we used to have quarterly mastery or digital town halls. We moved it to monthly, and then we realized no, we need to do this weekly. So we had these mastery hours with our guest faculty and our alums, and we sometimes had as many as 250 alums. And we turned our reunion, which was going to be a reunion in San Francisco for 750 alums, into a Resumion. So it was a Zoom day, a 6-hour day on Zoom with a lot of great guest speakers and lots of interactions, lots of breakout groups. So what I would just say is this, we are actually this fall opening a dyad-based, 2-people-based program where you have a cohort of 8, and each week you have in a 9-week program, you actually do your work with someone else in the group. And so I have become a believer that if you do it the right way and take advantage of the fact that people are more able to say yes to an online event than say coming to Mexico, certainly right now, but even normally. So we can scale things a lot more in the online world than we could just having an MEA campus. So we're doing both now. Not only are we doing the online for alums, but we're actually opening up to the public, the general public in the fall. So the key is to know what are the risks of creating an authentic experience in an online format. Number one is you need to make sure people are committed to it. Because when people come to MEA down here, they're flying down here, we pick them up at the airport, they don't have a car, so they can't leave. So if 2 days into it, they're feeling, I don't like this. We've never had anybody leave because we don't let them leave, but nobody's ever wanted to leave because they just realize they're remote, they're here and they're committed. The challenge with online is people can be very flaky. So what you really need to do in creating a unique experience and maybe building even a sense of community is figure out how to get people bought in early. Now, I'm not doing that right now, although actually in the Q&A function, maybe we can actually try this because I don't see a chat function on here. In the Q&A function, ask a question that you think that you're gonna want me to listen to later. It's your way of investing right now in the fact that later I'm gonna try to answer it. So do that, or ask a question of somebody else. It could be of Benu, it could be of anybody. It doesn't have to be just to me. So go to the Q&A function and do that. Because while this is a webinar format, so it's like me lecturing, which is not my favorite format. What we can do is figure out how do you help people to feel invested and connected to the online experience, because they're less likely to actually drop off if that's the case. And so I would just say that is one of my key lessons. When we had almost half of our 750 people, alums, in a 6-hour seminar for the day, and they were calling, we're from 24 countries. We had people calling in from Singapore, Australia, from France. It was amazing that people stayed on as long as they did, sometimes late into the night, because what they felt was they knew that there was an opportunity for them to feel a sense of connection with each other. So
wonderful.
That's what I would say.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Embracing unknowns and just going with it. Right? Thank you, Chip. So with that, I'm going to just briefly talk about my favorite book, Peak. I don't know how many times I've read it and how many times I've used it, but Chip has this phenomenal triangle in Peak, which talks about employee pyramid, customer pyramid, how do we give a sense of meaning, which is really, above anything else. And for customer, how do we really meet their unrecognized needs, right? So right now, when it comes to recovery, for our customer, their unrecognized needs is what else can offer them. And for their customer, their unrecognized needs is, do we even feel safe coming to you or coming and staying with you? Or do we feel confident working with you? Are you taking care of needs which I've never told you, right? So, and then all these three pyramids or three triangle makes this beautiful, beautiful peak performance overall culture. And I'm probably not doing a justice explaining how awesome peak is, but question for Chip is, Chip, how does these three pyramids work in down economy, right?
Thank you. Well, it's just some background on this book. This was my third book, so I've had 5 books. And this book I wrote as a result of my experience during the dot-com bust and 9/11 as a hotelier at that time, all of our hotels in the San Francisco Bay Area economy, which was by far the worst hit economy in the US. And so what I did during that time was I got reacquainted with a guy named Abraham Maslow, who created the hierarchy of needs pyramid. And the hierarchy of needs pyramid is a psychology theory from the mid-20th century that pretty much said, there's some base needs people have in life, what he called physiological and safety needs. And those are sort of your survival needs. And then the third and fourth level of this pyramid were your belonging, social and belonging needs. The fourth level was the esteem needs. And then the fifth level was self-actualization. So what we did was we took that pyramid and turned it into a 3-level pyramid with survival at the base, success in the middle, and transformation at the top. And we applied that transformation pyramid of 3 levels, survival, success, transformation, to our 3 most important stakeholders: our employees, which is the bottom left-hand corner, the customers, which is at the top of this pyramid, and our investors, which is at the bottom right-hand corner. And the reason we did that was because what we felt in the downturn of the dot-com bust and 9/11 was we could be in survival mode as a company for the next 5 or 10 years, and no one's going to like that. How do we address the basic needs of our employees first, our customers second? And if we do those 2 well, we think our investors are going to actually do well as a result of focusing on those first 2. So let me explain why we focus on employees first. If you look in the middle of this diagram, you'll see a heart. And we call this the Joie de Vivre heart. And it comes from a concept that I learned from Southwest Airlines. And Southwest Airlines got it from Harvard Business School. Harvard Business School had a study in a book called The Service Profit Chain. And what they were able to show is that when you actually create a unique corporate culture, point number 1 on the heart, it leads to enthusiastic staff who are more committed to their work, more loyal to the company. And if you do that, what you end up with is strong customer loyalty. Your customers love you, and they're your evangelists. And if they do that, you're actually able to grow market share, maybe even spend less on marketing, although I shouldn't say that, on this seminar, because you won't have to market to your existing customers as much, because your existing customers market to their friends. But there's lots of ways you can do that using online tools that Milestone can offer. And then you end up at point 4 on the heart, maintaining a profitable and sustainable business. So having a profitable business is not the leading indicator of your success. It's the lagging indicator of your success. It's what happens when you do the other 3 things first. So that means we needed to focus on the employee pyramid first. And so the employee pyramid, the survival need is money. The success need is feeling recognized. And the transformational need is feeling a sense of meaning in what you do. And in fact, in many ways, there's 3 relationships you can have with your work. It's either a job, a career, or a calling. And they line up. If you're focused primarily just on money, it's a job. If you're focused on recognition, you're focused on your career path. And if you're focused on meaning, you're actually looking at your work being a calling. And when you have a sense of calling, you're inspired by it. You actually are more focused on often the intrinsic motivation as opposed to the extrinsic motivation, whereas money and recognition are extrinsic motivators. So long story short is this model helped us to see, and I learned a lot from Southwest Airlines, as I said, about this. I used the Maslow theory, studied psychology and motivational theory, and ultimately we created this pyramid. And it's part of the reason that a few years ago, when I was still owning and CEO of Joie de Vivre, we became the second most the second happiest employee force in the San Francisco Bay Area, second best place to work, in essence, after Google. So this model helped us, and especially in a downturn. In a downturn, you better make sure the base of the pyramid's right. If people don't have a safety, security, if you're actually cutting back the workload so people are only working half time, having meaning helps them feel inspired. But if you actually can't pay your rent, then people tend to go back to the survival part of the pyramid. So let's go to the customer part of the pyramid. The customer part of the pyramid has 3 levels. Expectations, meaning your expectations, that creates customer satisfaction. Pre-internet, that is what a lot of companies focused on, satisfying the customer. And then they realized when the internet came along, and Benu 26 years ago started Milestone. Is it 26 years ago? Really? Crazy.
23.
What's that?
23. But
23,
yeah.
But yes. So in 1994, we first met. 1997, you started Milestone approximately. The reality is what the internet did is it created a promiscuous customer. Now, that's a provocative way to put it, but what it meant is as soon as a customer knew that there were lots of choices and they were all there on the internet, it meant that they went shopping on the internet a lot more than they used to. Because in the past, it was really hard to find, like if you're going to find the right hotel, you didn't have Expedia and Booking.com, and you didn't have all the websites in the world. You didn't have Google. But what the internet has done is actually made it such that if all you're focusing on is customer satisfaction and meeting their expectations, you probably have a less loyal customer than you would have 25 years ago. Which is why the second level of this pyramid, when a customer feels successful, they have their desires met. They're more committed. They're more likely to not be promiscuous. And that has a lot to do with feeling like, okay, the company that I'm buying from has listened to me. In fact, companies that do a great job on this middle level of the pyramid are those that have all kinds of ways of listening to their customer, whether it's focus groups or it's quantitative surveys, etc. But the best companies in the world usually are hanging out at the top of this pyramid. Apple, famously, Steve Jobs said long ago, focus groups tell you nothing, because frankly, a customer doesn't necessarily know what they want until you show it to them. Because in essence, from Apple's perspective, the focus groups only get you to the middle level of the pyramid. It's when you understand your customers almost better than they understand themselves in terms of what their needs are. You understand their unrecognized needs, that you are able to deliver on something. So let me use an example on this. One of the hotels that Joie de Vivre created during my time of 24 years as CEO was the Hotel Vitale in San Francisco on the waterfront at the corner of Embarcadero and Mission across the street from the ferry building. When we built that hotel, that neighborhood was not what it is today. Today, it's a great neighborhood. The ferry building's big, beautiful food marketplace. But back then, the ferry building was closed down. That was a pretty unsafe neighborhood in some level on the edge of the financial district. It's where frankly, it's where the Embarcadero freeway used to be. And that's what had made it sort of an unsafe neighborhood. Long story short is, I believed 20 years ago that yoga was growing in its popularity, especially amongst business travelers and especially women business travelers. So the Hotel Vitale as a concept for a hotel was a hotel that was meant to help you feel revitalized. Most people don't think of business travel as something that revitalizes you. So we thought of it as almost like a spa hotel in a financial district. Now, my investors in this hotel were like, okay, well, that sounds sort of crazy, but yes, women now represent almost half of business travelers, and most business travel hotels sort of feel like they're built for men. So they got it. But when I said I wanted to take real estate on the top floor of the hotel and turn it into a yoga studio, where people can go to a yoga class before they go off and do their work for the day, they looked at me like I was crazy. Like, no one's ever done that in a financial district hotel. And your guest satisfaction forms never actually even said that people wanted it. But what I knew is that yoga was becoming quite big with women business travelers. So I convinced them, hey, if this is a bad idea, we'll turn it into a guest suite, 6 months from now. And the first week that we were open, we had a line out the door. Now, this was not something anybody ever told us that they wanted in a hotel, but the idea that a business class hotel in a financial district could offer a 1-hour free class before people go off to their meetings for the day turned out was something that people really wanted. So that's just an example of an in real life. That's not an online version, but it's an in real life way of actually addressing an unrecognized need. All right, and then the third pyramid here is the investor pyramid, and that I'm not going to spend much time on that because, quite frankly, not all of you have investors. But the truth is, if you have a bad relationship with your investors, then frankly, it messes up everything for your employees and your customers too, or whoever your capital partner is. What's interesting about this whole pyramid and with the heart in the center is if you look at the heart, as Joie de Vivre created the heart 6 or 7 years before we created this pyramid, and we put the heart in the center, not even thinking about it at the time. But if you look at point number 1 and point number 2 on the heart, creating a great culture and having an enthusiastic staff, they're exactly next door to the employee pyramid. If you look at point number 3 on the heart, it's next to the customer pyramid. If you look at number 4 on the heart about profitable and sustainable business, who does that matter to? The investors. And so it is basically a holistic system. John Mackey, the founder of Whole Foods Markets, called it the virtuous circle. And he's at Whole Foods and Zappos and AirBNB and a bunch of companies used Peak as a model for how they ran their business. So there you go.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I said, right, I can't even do justice of explaining this. But, one thing I always admired about Chip, that his ability to be in front of customer, right? We cannot create process document if we don't understand customer unrecognized needs. So you literally have to throw yourself, really understand what customer wants, what is most important to that employee, which is probably a little bit bigger than money and recognition, right? So, and in this down economy, that's even more important. Yes, there are always going to be time crunch, but we have to, as a leader, we need to prioritize being in front of customer, understanding what is really critical for them, and show them, not tell them. When you show them, that's when they understand, yes, that's what they need, and help solve their problem. So with that, I'm going to kind of show you something what different brands are doing, right? My favorite cup of coffee now, it can be delivered through Uber Eats. Who could have thought 4 months back that you can get a cup of coffee through Uber Eats, right? And I'm sure there are a lot of process documents which this company broke, and there's a lot of pivoting they had to do what they did in the last 3 months. But it solves customer need. And that was all about moving swiftly, moving fast, solving customer problem, and learning as we go. There's another client of ours, Sprinkle Cupcake. They are contributing. This is a Pride Month, and they're contributing contributing by just donating as you buy cupcakes. I'm sure you guys all like Sprinkle Cupcake. And then we are doing with a lot of different brands, different customers, where we are giving a lot of local experience because people are not traveling internationally or nationally. So literally changing all their assets, all the communication, which is all about creating engagement and giving those unique experience with safety, right? So most important thing people have in their mind is it safe? So once they overcomes that safety concern, then it's all about experience and how do you nurture and how do you really connect in community. So with that, I guess I am gonna get to our next question, skills, right? Yes. What skills are really we must all gain? Is it is it the time for us to get another 5 certification? Is it really a time for us to look for new process documents because none of us have one? What are the skills which are most important for everyone, not employee, everyone to gain in this down economy, which is going to help everyone?
So thank you, Benu. You're going to hear a little bit about mindset in a few minutes from me, but you can see the picture there. That's a book by Carol Dweck, and I'll talk about that. And then this other one about being passionate, the image of me, my passion is being culturally curious. I just think curiosity is a really important thing. In the worst of times, curiosity can help reduce your anxiety and your sense of fear. So let me tell you the 5 suggestions I have for people of 5 leadership skills that are really leadership skills both for yourself and for other people. Some of these are absolutely for yourself. Some of these could be related to someone who's a direct report, and they could relate to you, how you lead them. The first one I will just say is leaders are the emotional thermostats of those they lead. So what does that mean? So when you are a thermostat, it's different than a thermometer. A thermometer tells you the temperature. A thermostat actually controls the climate. So what does that mean? That means that you lead your emotional maturity, you lead your emotional intelligence. It's really important to know that the leader of a group or of a meeting or of an organization, the higher you are in leadership, the more people look for you and model your behavior. So if you are going through a very difficult time and you are ranting and raving and throwing things and being just sort of a jerk, you are affecting not just the culture of your company, but you are actually affecting the emotional experience of the people who you work with. And they take that home with them. And if someone's constantly coming home and saying they hate their work, it's not the person, I'm not as so worried about that person who hates their work. I am worried about them, but I'm actually worried about their husband, their wife, and their children who actually get the toxic effect of that emotional fist print almost that the person feels like they're taking home with them every day because they feel punched in the face every time they go to work. So I'm not saying this, you have to be nice all the time. But what I am saying is if you don't recognize that our emotions as humans are contagious, just like the virus, that if you don't actually, if you're not conscious about that fact, then you probably are creating a toxic workplace, because actually you have to be conscious about your behaviors. And the more senior you are in your company, the more that important that is. Secondly, if you go to Wisdom Well, you'll see a post that I did months ago called the Anxiety Balance Sheet. And when I wrote a book called Emotional Equations a few years ago, I studied emotions. And one of the emotions I wanted to understand was anxiety, which is absolutely relevant today in the economy we're in and in the public health situation we're in. 98% of anxiety comes from two ingredients, only two. Anxiety equals uncertainty times powerlessness, not plus, because actually if you have both uncertainty and powerlessness, it's not an addition equation, it's a multiplication equation. And for those of you who know math, that means, wow, it gets a lot worse. So in difficult times, if you look at that blog post in Wisdom Well at the Modern Elder Academy website, what you'll see is like, oh, I could create a balance sheet. I could have, like assets and liabilities. When it comes to certainty, I could say, okay, what things do I know? Let's make a list of those. And then what things am I uncertain about or don't I know? And then I could do the same for what things can I influence and do I have some control over? And then again, what things don't I have influence or power over? When you actually get very conscious about what you know and what you don't know and what you can control and what you can't control, you actually realize most people actually have more things in the asset columns than they do in the liability columns. And then you have to say, okay, well, how can I learn more about that thing I don't know or that thing I can't control? Well, for one person recently, they said to me, the thing I'm so worried about is I'm going to get laid off. Well, guess what you could do? Go to your boss, ask for some private time, and just say, what's the state of the company? And am I at risk of getting laid off? And now she said to me, oh my God, that makes me even more anxious. I said, you know what? The truth is, most people would prefer to know whether they're going to get laid off and have some time to prepare for that than actually have the surprise. Social science studies have been very clear about this. People find the surprise factor is what they get anxious about. I don't want to be surprised. So for those who want to look at that further, look at the blog post, the anxiety balance sheet on the Wisdom Well. Number 3 is, here's a question you could ask your wife, your husband, or maybe someone who works for you. How can I support you? And the way I've done it for direct reports is, how can I support you to do the best work of your life here at AirBNB, or here at Joie de Vivre, or here at the Modern Elder Academy? When I ask that question of a direct report, it has 3 great benefits of it. Number 1 is they know that I want to support them. If I say that to my husband, wife, whomever, how can I support you to be a better husband or better wife? It's sort of a weird question, but it's an interesting question. If you said that to your husband, said, how can I support you to be a better husband? It's like, okay, instead of saying, why can't you be a better husband? How can I support you to be a better husband? Or how can I support you to be a better son or daughter? But if we take it back to the workplace, how can I support you to do the best work of your life? First of all, they know you support them. Secondly, they know you want to do the best. You want them to do the best work of their life. Wow, that actually says, I've got to step up my game. But the fact that you're actually putting this in their lap rather than you being in charge gives them a sense of agency and a sense that they have some voice in creating the habitat or the conditions for them to do their best work. So that's a great question to keep in mind. How can I support you to do the best work of your life at whatever company you're in? 4th is, it's all about teams. And Benu and I were talking about this before the show. One of my greatest strengths is also one of my greatest weaknesses. I have a bias for action. I'm an entrepreneur. I am also impatient. And there's 2 sides of the same coin. So someone recently said to me, one of my co-founders here at Modern Elder Academy, Chip, how about if you tried to move at the speed of partnership? Fly at the speed of partnership. At the speed of light, flying at the speed of light. Flying at the speed of partnership meant, oh gosh, I need to be more collaborative with my partners, make sure that know what's going on in my head. And he also then helped me to remind myself of an African proverb. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So one of the key things in a downturn is if it's all left up, it feels at times like we're all alone because we're all at home on doing Zoom calls. So for leaders, it's all the more important that people feel a sense of collaboration. I mentor a CEO, a 31-year-old CEO in London, who's had his company for 10 years. It's now worth, $500 million. And he owns almost all of it himself. So I was just on the phone with him this morning. I'm on the phone with him all the time. And what's so interesting is he has realized that the most important thing he needs to do with his Zoom meetings is start the meeting each week with one of his 7 other senior leaders on his executive committee, asking a provocative question to the group. And everybody knows the question a day in advance. So the provocative question is, like the one for today, for the executive committee meeting for today was, when was the last time you had a full belly laugh, and what was it about? And so each of the 8 people then tell their story. There's another story, what last week for the executive committee meeting was, it's similar to what I just talked about. What is your greatest strength? And at what times is it also your greatest weakness? And so why is that important? Because it's very easy in Zoom calls to get transactional. And all we're focusing on is the agenda, but not the personal side of things. And we don't get to meet each other or run into each other at the water cooler anymore, nor go out for lunch and have a conversation. So you have to sort of build it into the communications of your team. And therefore, that means at times you need to slow down. And instead of being focused on getting there fast, you need to go further by being together. And then finally, the last point I'll make in terms of a skill is, it really is a skill of learning how to focus on the positive without being Pollyanna. And I talk about this as creating the momentum of victory. It's really important for a team to feel like they're on a winning team. And in a pandemic and in this kind of economy, it's really easy to feel like you're on a losing team. But frankly, almost all teams right now are on losing teams. Everybody's struggling. Not everybody, but most companies, most teams are struggling. So it's really important to remind yourself on a daily basis, what went right today? How could I go home and have a gratitude list about what went right today? Or how could I, with my team, recognize people and say, you know what, here's some great things that have happened in the last week. Now, the key is to make sure that you're not erring on the side of looking like you're clueless. But it does help to create a psychohygiene. This is a hyphenated Abraham Maslow word. Psychohygiene is really important. And those are my 5.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. So like all of you guys, I know there are a lot of questions coming in, and we'll definitely get to it. But key thing is that skills we need to gain is our ability to work together, our ability to enable our employees, our team, our customers, and adapt quickly, communicate, right? It's a little bit less about gaining one more skill, but it's a little bit more about understanding what our customer, what our employees, what companies, what everybody need, and adapt and swift quickly with, again, smile on our face. Because let's face it, if we are not being positive, whoever it is, if it's a leader or individual, if we are not positive, we cannot bring smile to anybody's face. So to solve customer problem, keeping it right front and center, and adapting, communicating, aligning, changing fast. With that, I think our next and our very last question is, and I think Chip already talked about, a lot of these came from him, that what are the leadership must have, right? It is unknown sea, right? And I know Chip learned surfing when he was like 52, 53.
58, 57.
58, 57. And because it's unknown territory, nobody knows it. And more you figure out what's happening, more you kind of experiment, more you can adapt and move fast. And these are a lot of different principle, a lot of learning we had over a period of years, that you have to kind of stay in attuned stage, curating it, focusing it, having that connection, and being very mindful. Chip, there is anything else as a leader, as a founder, which is critical?
The last thing I'm going to suggest, yes, is about the mindset. It's really about how do you move from a fixed to a growth mindset. Let me explain that for a moment, and then we can go to questions, or soon. A fixed mindset, many of us have. We don't even know we have it. And when you have a fixed mindset, you want to prove yourself. And to the definition of success is winning. The problem with that is that over time, if you only play the game if you're going to win, you stop playing the game, and your sandbox as you get older gets smaller and smaller. So the opposite of a fixed mindset is a growth mindset. And instead of focusing on proving yourself, you're focused on improving yourself. And instead of defining success as winning, you define success as learning. So the number one piece of advice I have for people on a personal level and then on a leadership level during this time is study mindset. I've written a lot about it on the Wisdom Well blog. Earlier, you had a photo of me holding up Carol Dweck's book called Mindset, a great book that'll help you to understand how do you shift that mindset. Because if you actually shift into a growth mindset, what you're going to be able to do is look at this experience as the best experience of your life for learning. You will learn more during a downturn than you will during normal times. And so if you have that point of view, then you look at this as an opportunity. And of course, many people know that in Mandarin, I believe, the sign for crisis is also for opportunity. And so crisis can sometimes be an opportunity to learn.
Wonderful. In fact, one of my wish lists is to do a TED Talk one day, and it's going to be around how do you lose to win? Because if it's not about proving, then you're always solving problem, and you have laser sharp focus around solving problem and growing and learning every day. So absolutely, I love that book. Thank you, Chip. With that, we are going to wrap it up. When you enable your team, you let them make some mistakes, and it's absolutely fine. Celebrate every single success and keep a positive momentum. That's when miracle happens. Business starts pivoting, employees starts feeling empowered, and we all we are all there together in this, and nobody knows how this is going to pan out. One of the things I learned from Chip is let's enjoy, let's celebrate. Celebration of life is critical, and let's not be anxious. Let's keep learning and pivoting and changing. So key takeaway, and I know there are a lot of questions, so I don't want to take a lot of time. Key takeaway is, here is your funnel. And I hope we explain overall how this funnel stack up, right? It starts with communicating, connecting, and truly, truly caring. It is a hard time for companies. It's really hard time for business, really, really hard time for employees. And if we are not communicating effectively, then we are not building that connection, and we are not engaging with our community, with our teams. So that's number one. Then solving real problem, right? It's not about another certification. It's not about another process. It's about getting in front of a customer, understanding what is their problem. And while you solve that real problem, gaining the valuable skills, which actually builds an amazing culture, which enables you to adapt and change quickly. And Chip, is really funny. As I was putting this together, I went back to our core values and saw that core values align with a lot of these. So it's like, okay, well, nothing has changed. We just have to stay focused and curate and really focus, really keep principle right in front of us. So with that, I think we are going to open it up for question. We have 14 minutes, and there are a lot of questions coming here. Frank, okay. Organization in Silicon Valley appear to be taking a bearish approach to the recovery in terms of gathering again. What can we do with our business to ensure they remain connected to us and keep the brand relevant?
Well, it's hard, without knowing more details, it's hard to answer the specifics, but let me actually propose something to you. The question I think every company should ask themselves is the following around relevance. Um, if we didn't exist as a company, who would care? How would the world be a different place? So it's a great question for a company to ask, because if actually it doesn't matter, if obviously your employees care, but if your customers and your investors care, but if your customers or the community or the media or whomever, clients, don't care, then something's wrong. So I think the most important question you as a group can ask yourself is, what is it you can do right now that makes sure that people care? For Modern Elder Academy, as Benu knows, I mean, like, we tried our hardest without being paid anything to go out and create the opportunity for our alums to connect with each other using the online platform. We didn't charge anything for that. And we did it for months. And then later we said, okay, we now want to raise some money because we have to close for 7 months. People, over half of our 750 people have given us money, have contributed, which is crazy considering they consider us almost like their alma mater. And they only came here for a week. So just sometimes you have to go out and give something first. It's called what Stephen Covey called, build the emotional bank account with someone before you ask for something.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's take a couple of more questions. What are some best leadership books you would suggest? What book and author are you keen on this year? I think maybe 5 or 3 or 4 best leadership book. Of course, my favorite is Peak, but go ahead, Chip.
I mean, yeah, Peak. Okay, we'll keep Peak there. I'm a big fan of Danny Meyer, who wrote the book Setting the Table. So if you're in the hospitality business, absolutely a great read. He is the best, most celebrated restaurateur in the US, and Setting the Table is really about a leadership book about how to create a great organization. I think any of the books by Marcus Buckingham are great around leadership, as well as Jim Collins, From Good to Great, is a bigger strategy kind of book. That's it for now. I mean, there's a lot of other ones I could mention, but I'm gonna leave it at that for now. I do love Viktor Frankl's book Man's Search for Meaning, which is not a book about leadership, but it's about learning how to be less reactive in life. So that's my favorite book of all time.
Wonderful. I'll take one more question. What role does deep empathy play to truly understand your employees, customers, and investors?
What a great question. It's huge. Deep empathy gets you to the top of each of those pyramids. Without deep empathy, you're in the transactional nature. So what's at the bottom of each of those 3 pyramids is transactional. What's at the top is transformational. The ultimate transformation for people is often when someone feels like, you get me, you understand me, whether you're an employee, a customer, or an investor. And so deep empathy allows you to understand what it's like to be in someone else's shoes. So deep empathy, I actually think one of the pieces of deep empathy we need to have in the world right now is we need to, my acronym is BTO, be the other. Be the other means, what is it like to be an African American in the United States? What is it like to be the CEO and a woman in Silicon Valley? What is it like to be a gay man in an investment bank? What is it like? And when you start to realize that we are all the other in certain environments, we are all sometimes the minority, not the person with the power, the privilege. When you start to realize everybody has an ability to be the other, and if you've never been the other, you've never felt like you were sort of part of, lacking in the power dynamic of the demographically in the place you are, then you have probably not had the opportunity to understand deep empathy. Because when you actually are the other, and this is obviously right now very relevant in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement, when you understand the other, it actually helps you to have deep empathy for what they're going through. Now, that doesn't mean, deep empathy doesn't mean you don't have a different point of view sometimes. Deep empathy doesn't mean you like say everything that person says is right. No, it just means you have a deep empathy for understanding where their point of view is coming from.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, I guess one more last one, because this is really good one. It seems you need a degree of intuition to discover unrecognized needs. How can you develop that muscle and get better at discovering your customers' unrecognized needs?
So it's a great question. And if you read the book Peak, chapter 9 of the book is exactly that. It's the whole chapter is on unrecognized needs, and there's 4 key themes in the chapter, but it's way too much information to say now. Let me just tell you how we did it at Joie de Vivre in my company. We created 52 boutique hotels over my 24 years of being there. Every time we created a hotel, it was based upon a magazine, because what we believed was the magazine created the personality and soul of the hotel. So my first hotel was called the Phoenix, and it's a rock and roll hotel, and it was based upon Rolling Stone magazine. So everything we did in creating that hotel came back to the 5 adjectives that we thought defined Rolling Stone magazine: funky, irreverent, adventurous, cool, and young at heart. And in the process of creating that hotel, those became the touchstone of how we designed, how the kind of staff we hired, funky, irreverent staff, etc. What we came to see over time is that the people who fell in love with the hotel would use those 5 adjectives to describe themselves. So what we started to realize is that we were not just in the boutique hotel business, we were in the identity refreshment business. We were helping to refresh the identity of a customer, because by staying at the Phoenix, that customer loved feeling more funky or irreverent. Or the Vitality, which I mentioned earlier, the way we knew that yoga 20 years ago was going to be big was because we used 2 magazines, Real Simple meets Dwell. The 5 adjectives for the Vitality when we were creating it were modern, urbane, fresh, natural, and nurturing. And when we thought about those 5 adjectives, we said having a yoga studio would be appropriate for someone who has that psychographic, that sort of personality. And that was our shorthand way of understanding what are the things that our customers would want that they've never seen in a hotel before. But you can read a lot more about it in chapter 9 of Peak.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And just to add to it, Chip, add to this, one way of really understanding customer need is no matter where you are and what title you have and where you're working, take out time to really go in the market, talk to your customers. And I do that still today. When Milestone was one person company, and today we are around almost 250 folks. And every day talking to the customer and employees is the best time I have during the day to really understand what problem we are trying to solve. And are we really even solving the right problem? Because problem keeps changing based on where customer is or where employee is. With that, I know there are a lot more questions coming in. Thank you, everyone. We are going to wrap it up. Know that I actually hijacked only 20 minutes from Chip, but then I'll end up taking entire hours. So thank you so much. We have another webinar next week with Chip Roger from AHLA. He's going to be talking about what is hospitality industry overall, what his association is doing, what are some of the must-have with Anil and Eric. Some really great insights. So please do sign up if you are looking for more information. And then a lot more information, a lot more content is coming. Please do let us know how are we doing, because purpose of these webinars is to help you, help our community, help our customers, help employees to kind of go through this downturn, because all of us are here together and we have to not only do things in our own area of expertise, but overall as an organization, we need to be strong. As a community, we need to be strong. And once we come out of this, then we'll all celebrate life, right? It's might as well celebrate life while we are going through this. We do have a complimentary audit. I'm sure if you guys have attended this, feel free to join in. And I have literally only 3 minutes remaining, and I had to show this. So I put this particular one towards the back. And this is one of the favorite graphic which Chip always shared with us. We all have to stay in a flow zone, right? embrace a challenge, because more challenge you're embracing, more skill you are developing. It's not about a new coding language. It's not about a new, glorious something. It's about handling real-time problem. And then we have this, in Navy SEAL, and I did put that saying, Chip, which you talked about, but people who get really selected are not the people who have highest intellectual IQ or people who come with amazing, phenomenal degrees or great universities. People who do well and break into Navy SEAL are folks who are working together, and they take every single part of their life, all the energy to truly work together as a team. And that's what I would wrap up our webinar today. We are right on time. Thank you so much, Chip. Do you want to say anything last?
No.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone. And we are going to be sending information to you. If there are questions not answered, please do let us know. Thank you.